Hi, sorry, India.
ಇಲ್ಲ ಈಗ ಬೆಸ್ಟ್
ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ. Science Sanjayಗೆ ಸ್ವಾಗತ. Welcome to Science Sanjay. Today's honorable guest is TNC Vidya. TNC Vidya is an associate professor and chair of evolutionary and integrated biology unit at Jawaharlal Nehru Center for Advanced Scientific Research, Jaipur, Bengaluru. Today, she will be giving a talk on understanding elephants. First, a little introduction about our esteemed guest. TNC Vidya got her BSc degree in Zoology, Botany and Chemistry in 1997 from St. Francis College, Hyderabad. She completed MS in Biology in 2000 from Indian Institute of Science, Bengaluru. She attained PhD in 2005 from Center of Ecological Sciences, Indian Institute of Science, Bengaluru. She had a visiting scholarship at the Center for Environmental Research and Conservation, Columbia University, New York, between October 2000 and February 2003. She had a 2-year postdoctoral fellowship from the National Research Foundation, South Africa, held at Stellenbosch University from February 2007 to June 2008. She was a Ramanujan Fellow from the Department of Science and Technology, Government of India, between August 2008 and July 2013. She is the founding member and fellow of the Indian Society of Evolutionary Biologists. She has been presented with many awards and honors throughout her career, including Indian National Science Academy Young Scientist Award in 2007. She has extensively published various research papers and articles. Her research area is primarily based on Asian elephant socio-ecology and behavior. I am honored to wholeheartedly welcome her to Science Sanje. Welcome, ma'am. Today she will be giving a talk on understanding elephants. ಆನೆಗಳನ್ನು ಅರ್ಥ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಳ್ಳೋಣ. I request everyone to switch off or silence the phone for the duration of the talk. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for inviting me, Sharma sir and others. Today I will keep this a bit interactive. Sorry, ನಾನು ಇಂಗ್ಲಿಷಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತೀನಿ ಇವತ್ತು. And we will talk a little bit about elephants. So, Baba View said the following statement. In the end, we will conserve only what we love. We will love only what we understand. And we will understand only what we are taught. The last part is not really true, but the second part at least I think is true. So we'll try to see what we know about it. Now, what do we need to understand? We need to understand a whole lot of things, which we can't talk about all of them today. So today we will talk about a few things, starting from how many kinds of elephants there are, where do these elephants live, what do we know about elephant populations, what are the challenges of being a mega herbivore, and what do we know about elephant society. So starting with how many living species of elephants are there? How many elephant species are there? Do you know? Two? Anybody else? Anyone? How many species of elephants are there? Two? So till recently, it was thought that there are 2 species of elephants. But actually there are 3 species of elephants. Okay? So these are the 3 species. We have the African savanna or bush elephant on the right here. We have the African forest elephant. And we have the Asian elephant. For a long time, initially some people had said by observing these animals that there must be 2 species of African elephants, forest elephant and the bush elephant. Then in 2001, there was a genetic study which looked at elephants from different parts of Africa. And they said that there are actually 2 species. But from 2001, for the next 20 years, because of all the politics of of conservation involved. Unfortunately, there are a lot of politics of conservation also. Because if you say that this is not one species, these are two species, then how will the funds be allocated to the two species? Right? The African savanna elephant, there are about 400,000 African savanna elephants. There are only about 100,000 African forest elephants. But most of the people work on the African savanna elephant. Right? And there are even fewer Asian elephants. There are only about 50,000 Asian elephants. So it's not just the science. In making real life decisions, there are a lot of other factors that come into it. So till last year, people continue to say, no, we will consider these as two species, African and Asian. Then last year, finally, because of so many papers now saying that there are two different species of forest elephants, now it is accepted that there are three living species: the African savanna elephant, forest elephant, and the Asian elephant. Now, what is the difference between these three species? If we just look at morphology, the African savanna and the bush elephant, they can be differentiated by their height to some extent. The African savanna elephant has more triangular ears, which you can see here. The back shape is a bit concave. And if you look at the trunk tip, there are two finger-like projections on the trunk tip. If we look at the African forest elephant, the ears are a bit smaller than the African savanna elephant. The ears are a little more rounded, not so triangular here. The back is a little less concave, and it still has two-lipped trunk tip like the African savanna elephant. And the tusks of the African forest elephant are usually a bit thinner and shorter and straighter. The Asian elephant, this is our species of elephant. This has smaller ears. Here the females are tuskless. African savanna and bush elephant, both males and females both have tusks. In Asian elephant, only the males have tusks. Not all males have tusks. We also have makhnas, which don't have tusks. The back shape is of different types, but it's not mostly concave. And the trunk tip has a single finger-like extension. Now, where do they live? Here in this map, we have the yellow showing the African savanna or bush elephant, the purple showing the African forest elephant, and the red showing the Asian elephant. So here, these first two photos are from the African savanna. They live in slightly drier habitats compared to the bush elephant, the forest elephant, which inhabits slightly moister habitats. And of course, coming to the Asian elephant, I will mostly talk about the Asian elephant now. They live in many different kinds of forests. Right? So they are found in moist forests, like this is taken in North Bengal on the top. They inhabit grasslands like Kaziranga, bottom right, and Corbett, the bottom left. They are found in deciduous forests across a large part of their range, right from South and Southeast Asia. And they're also found in forests that have a lot of bamboo. They're found in thorn forests. Now, because elephants interact with a lot of species, they are also very ecologically important. Right? Now, you can ask, why are we saying the elephant is ecologically important? Every species is ecologically important. What is so special about the elephant? Right? Every species is ecologically important. But one can also look at how many ecological connections there are with different species. So sometimes you can have very specialized species. So you have the yucca moth and the yucca. So one moth interacts with one plant and their survival is connected. They may interact with some few other species. But if you have some species which interact with a lot of other species, then we think that they are ecologically more important. So you can think of this thought experiment. If you remove the species, what will happen? So that is one way of thinking how ecologically important a species is. Right? So if we look at humans, for instance, if we remove humans, nothing much will happen. The world will probably be better, but a lot of structural changes will happen in the initial time because we have changed the landscape quite a bit. Like that, elephants also change the landscape quite a bit. They are ecosystem engineers because they move through the forest, they create paths in the forest, right? And their dung is used by so many species. Even their footprints, the water that collects in the footprints, can be used as pools by mosquitoes. So there are the inside of the skull has these bees using that as a place to build their homes. So you have a lot of interactions that are involving elephants. So we call elephants an umbrella species because they cover a very large area, and the range of an elephant includes, it's like an umbrella for so many other species. So by protecting the elephant, you can indirectly protect the ranges of many species. Now, what is the problem as far as elephants are concerned? Anyone? Sorry?
Habitat. Loss of habitat.
Exactly. Right? So it's basically our unquenchable thirst for resources. So because we go on needing a lot of resources, then we end up having to take out habitats for mining, for dams, for linear infrastructure projects, for commercial plantations and so on. And that can in turn lead to a lot of conflict. So elephant human conflict is basically a consequence of the need for resources, the amount of resources that we would like to extract. And if you look at the range of elephants, the light green shows the historical range of elephants. So earlier, elephants ranged from the Tigris Euphrates in the Middle East all the way through China. Now, the dark green is where they are currently found. So the current range is only about 6% of its historical range. And currently, the Asian elephant, there are about 40 to 50,000 Asian elephants. And of course, in Asia, our relationship with elephants is very complex. Right? On the one hand, it's revered as a god. On the other hand, you have a lot of conflict, so people would like to retaliate. We also have captive elephants. They are used in processions. They are used in all kinds of functions. But we also have ivory poaching. We would like to kill them for ivory and so on. So it is a very complex relationship. But usually in Asia, elephants evoke some sort of feeling. So there is some cultural connection, which is why it is often called a flagship species, where you can build a connection with people and try to use it as a symbol for protecting species and habitats. Now, what do we know about elephant populations? Where are they found? The Asian elephant is distributed in these areas in black. India has the largest population, about 26,000 elephants. It's found in 13 different countries. Within India, we have four broad regions where elephants are found. Southern India with the largest population, and then we have northeastern India, central and northern India. Within southern India, we have three large landscapes. We have the Nilgiris Eastern Ghats along with Silent Valley, Nilambur. We have the Anamalai Paramikulam landscape. We have Periyar and then Kalakkad Mudathur. In the northeast, again we have three large populations. North bank of the Brahmaputra, the eastern region and the southwest, south central bank. Now, long ago, I had done this work during my PhD. We looked at the genetic structure of populations in India. So basically, I went and collected dung from different areas, and we wanted to see how connected are these elephant populations. Is there gene flow between different areas or not? So what we found was in the south, there was no gene flow between two or very little gene flow between two areas, north and south of the Palghat Gap. This is very strange. We still don't know why this is happening. So there is a break in gene flow across the Palghat Gap. So if you look at Anamalai and you look at Periyar, Paramikulam and so on, their genetic structure is a bit different from north of that Palghat Gap, which includes all the Nilgiris Eastern Ghats population. And then those are different from the central Indian region. And northern India and northeastern India are very similar. They are not different. Now, of course, there are no elephants in between, but that is a recent thing because those areas have been cleared. But there was connectivity long ago. So the gene flow that we look at is historical gene flow. So we cannot infer what is happening today by looking at genetic data. We are looking at what has happened some generations ago. So we found that there are 4 distinct units like this, management units. Northern, northeastern India, central India, Nilgiris, that larger area, and Annamalai area. And if you look at within the Nilgiris landscape, we found that all of these different locations are all connected to each other. That means historically there has been movement across all these areas. So, which tells us that we should be trying to protect the corridors that connect all of these areas, wherever there are corridors. Now, this again is kind of surprising because this is a very large area and that seems to be connected. But across the Palghat Gap, which is only 40 kilometers wide, we don't find much gene. We can also use these genetic studies to look at the population size of some populations, small populations, like we have done in Hassan and so on. One thing I want to say here is, I mean, since there are a lot of people who haven't used genetic work here, presumably. Just because you see some paper or some news or anything saying that this use genetic data, it doesn't mean it is foolproof. Right? Just like it's a tool. So one can use all kinds of other tools to say estimate population sizes. One can also use genetic tools. These also have mistakes. It's not that if somebody tells you, okay, I did genetic work, it should be pakka, there is no mistake. That cannot be the case. A lot of people try to give that impression. That is not the case. As somebody who's used it, I can tell you that's not the case. One can usually rely on genetic data if you're looking at historically very different populations or very different species. But at shorter time scales, you can't tell for sure. Now, we'll slightly move on to what kinds of challenges may be there for elephants in the sense of being a mega herbivore. Right? We call elephants a mega herbivore because they're very large. Now, if we look at the African savanna or bush elephant, males can be over 10 feet in height. They can weigh over 4,500 kg. Females themselves can be over 8 feet in height and they can weigh over 2.3 tons. Right? It's a very large animal. The forest elephant is smaller than the bush elephant. The Asian elephant lies somewhere in between these. But nevertheless, these are all very large species. Right? So what do you think? So the other thing is, if we look at the relatives of these elephants, here we have a tree on the left-hand side telling how long ago these different species diverged. Sorry. So the closest relative of the Asian elephant, compared to the African elephant, was the mammoth, the woolly mammoth. The woolly mammoth and the Asian elephant had a common ancestor around 6 million years ago. The African savanna elephant had a common ancestor with this extinct species, Paleoloxodon, which was really huge animal. And then it had a common ancestor with the African bush elephant. So the African elephants here and the Asian elephant, they have diverged about 7.7 million years ago. So that is how different they are, the African elephants and the Asian elephants. So they have diverged about 7.7 million years ago. That is more than the difference between humans and chimpanzees. So these species are very different in terms of how long ago they diverged. But then we often have this tendency to think, okay, this is an elephant, so all elephants may be similar. Like that's like saying, okay, these are primates, humans and chimpanzees, and they may be similar. So one has to understand these different species in their habitats and given their ecology. Now, if we go backwards in time and look at the order Proboscidea, the early proboscideans that we know of are this species on the top here, which is called Merytherium. This Merytherium was like a large pig, right? That is one of the species that shares ancestry with these elephant species. Now, if we go even backwards, and or if we look at the present day species, which are living species today, what do you think are the closest relatives of elephants? Sorry? Rhino? Anybody else? Shrew? Okay, anybody else? That's closer. Hippo? Anyone else? Sorry? Tapir? Sorry? Tapir? Okay, because of the similarity in the front. Actually, the closest are the dugongs. The sea cow? Sea cow? These. It's called the dugong, the sea cow. Sea cow. The next closest relative is that small animal, the hyrax. It's only about this big. That is the next closest relative, the hyrax. And closer, the next closest include the shrew that you were talking about. So, not the regular shrews, these are the elephant shrews. The regular shrews are in a different order. So, this clade, these are called Afrotheria. This again was discovered some many years ago based on genetic data. Suddenly they realized that although we would think that the rhino or hippo or tapir or something might be closely related because of their size, because of their skin, and so on. Actually, they are not the closest relatives. The closest relatives are all these species. These species all originated out of Africa, and therefore they were called the Afrotheria. Afrotheria. It includes various species which don't seem to be related. Like it includes this Ardak on top, which is an anteater. It includes the elephant shrews. It includes golden motes. It includes tenrecs and so on. Right? And then these dugongs, hyrax, and the elephants. Now, what might be the challenge of being a mega herbivore? Food. What could be the challenge of being a mega herbivore? Food is the first thing that comes to mind. Hotafulla is the call. So you need to have a lot of food if you have to be very large. And so elephants, they eat about 2.4 to 6% of their body weight per day, which is not a large amount of the body weight because many species eat much more of their body weight. Small animals will eat much more of their body weight. But this amounts to about 150 to 250 kg per day. So they also have to spend a very large amount of time feeding. They have to feed for 12 to 16 hours a day so that they can survive. And they eat a very large range of things. So here you have an elephant eating dilenia, that fruit, and then bamboo. You have different browse species, different trees. You have tree bark, you have grass, and so on. So it's more than 100 species are known as the elephant food species. But one thing I should say here is earlier people used to talk about generalist versus specialist. So generalists are something that eat all kinds of things. Specialists are those who specialize on some kinds of food. And elephants are usually called generalists. But it's not that they eat anything indiscriminately. So elephants are actually selective feeders. So, for instance, in Nagarhole, if we look at, we've done some vegetation transects, you look at what all species are present. And then see how many of those species are elephant food species. It's only about 13% of the species that are elephant food species, the known elephant food species. So, it's not that they eat anything that is there, they still need to go and find these particular species in the forest, which has a very large number of species. Now, given their very large size, one evolutionary innovation for the elephant has been the trunk. Right? The trunk is basically the nose and the upper lip, which have been fused together and then elongated over time. So this trunk, which is highly muscular, can be used to extend its reach. And of course, if they step onto something, they can extend their reach even further. So the trunk can be used for manipulating food. It can be used to drink water, but of course not like a straw. They have to take water and then put it in the mouth. And here, unfortunately, you have an elephant whose trunk was cut by a snare. It didn't die because of that, but you can see what the inside looks like. So that tube is there inside because it's like a nostril which is being elongated. When the elephants are small, they don't have much control over their trunk. So young elephants will just have their trunk which is flopping around because they can't really use that trunk much. So even if they have to drink water, they have to go and bring it to their mouth. They can't use their trunk to put water or food inside. The trunk also allows them to smell because it's their nostril. And elephants perceive their world largely through smell. Their vision is not very good. So they can see at shorter distances, but they can smell at very long distance. They also can hear very well. So they use their very good sense of hearing and smell to get information about other elephants, about the environment. And when they walk also, you can see when they want to decide what to eat, they will go on smelling the ground, look at which part is good, and then they pluck the grass from there. Now, just like we have people who are right-handers and left-handers, elephants use their trunk in a particular way. So you can have elephants which use their trunk clockwise or anti-clockwise. So here you can see this is going anti-clockwise. And here you have one which is going clockwise, this one is going anti-clockwise. Right. So if you watch the elephants feeding, see this, both of those elephants are using their trunk clockwise. This is somewhat fixed for an individual. So if an individual is going to use it clockwise, they go on using it clockwise. If they're using it anti-clockwise, they go on using it anti-clockwise. And this habit of using it clockwise or anti-clockwise is developed quite early on. So we have seen like calves, as soon as they start using their trunk, they develop a particular side and then they stick to that side. We tried to see whether it's inherited from the mother, but it wasn't. So what the side the calf uses doesn't necessarily match what the mother uses. But so at the population level, there are 50% right-handers or clockwise users and 50% left-handers. This has been of interest because in humans, we have a very large percentage of right-handers, right? More than 90%. In most species that have been studied, actually in almost all species that have been studied, people have not been able to find a population level handedness. You have handedness, but it's at the individual level, like the elephants. But at the population level, it's 50-50. But at an individual level, you can be 100% right-handed or left-handed. So in humans, and there was a study in kangaroos, you have a population level handedness. Okay. So what can the other challenge be?
Water.
Water, yes. Sorry?
Space.
Space. What about food itself? Could there be something else about eating food? Sorry? There is a clue here in that picture. Grass. Banana. Banana would be a tasty meal. So, because tawny food. So yes. So one thing about grass, they eat a lot of grass. It can vary from 50% to 90% of their food can involve different grasses. A lot of grasses have silica. So basically it's like glass on the grass blades. So if you have food which is rough, then your teeth are going to get worn out. Right? You're eating this much. Every day you have to eat 150 kg and that food that you're eating is also very rough. Your teeth are going to slowly get worn out after some time. Right? So if we look at the teeth in elephants, usually the teeth that we see are the tusks or the tushes. Right? So here you see tusks. In females and in makhnas, you have tushes which are very small, like tusks. These are the incisors, like our front teeth. They do not have any canines, but they have molars, like our molars. So this is one molar we found in the field. It was fallen. So this top part, uh, can you see this part? This is the chewing surface. Here it has got worn out. Elephants have very strange kind of teeth progression. At any point in time, if you look at the lower jaw and the upper jaw, each half of the lower jaw or the upper jaw will have only one large tooth, or sometimes two parts. So this entire thing is one molar. And when this molar gets used, it will keep getting pushed in front till it drops off. And a new one will grow from the back in its place. Right? So the dominant teeth in use are only four. So one on each side, lower jaw, one on each side in the upper jaw. And then those teeth get pushed, they keep getting used, and then they fall off, and the next one grows from the back in its place. So like this, they can grow six sets in each half on the upper jaw and the lower jaw. After the sixth set falls off, then they will die of starvation because they cannot eat anymore. Right? Humans also, that's what would have happened long ago, because if you don't have dentistry, then if all your teeth fall out, you can't really eat unless you have cooking. Right? So, so this is the way the teeth work. So initially the first set will be there for a few years, then for another few years, up to 9 years, 10 years. Then there will be a set for a very long time, till 25 years or so. Then another set when they are old. And then finally the last set falls off. And then they can't eat after that. So the previous picture which I showed you is from an upper jaw. So the orientation should be like that. So that's the upper jaws. Now somebody said that space is a big challenge. Right? So elephants have to move a lot because they need so much food. They also have to move to find this food. Right? And because of this, they also have to stand a lot, they have to walk a lot. Right? So they have feet which can support the standing and walking. If you look at the elephant foot and look at the bones in the foot, it is as if the elephant is walking on tiptoe. Right? So here you have the bones of the foot. It's like this. They're walking on tiptoe. And here there is that yellow is a fatty cushion. So they are able to take that weight because they have that fatty cushion and connective tissue over that. And then they are standing like that and walking. Right? That allows them to stand for very long periods of time. So they can also sleep while they are standing. They can sleep while lying down also, but they often sleep while standing also. Now, did you know elephants can hear with their feet? So they have very good hearing with their ears, but they can also feel vibrations on the ground through their feet, because that connective tissue which they have there is very amenable to vibrations being transmitted. So if there is a lot of vibration, they can pick that up, it goes to the legs and it goes to the inner ear. So they can sense these vibrations from the ground. The other factor is if you measure the forefoot circumference, twice of that will give you the shoulder height of an Asian elephant. It doesn't look like that, but then it does work. If you measure the entire circumference, you will get the height. So in the field, one can, if you get good footprints, you can measure the circumference and get an estimate of whether it's a small elephant that has walked by or a large elephant that has walked by. Now, they need very large home ranges, right? Because they need to get so much food, and they live in so many different kinds of habitats. And because they need very large home ranges, of course, now their home ranges are also interrupted by all kinds of anthropogenic changes which they have to cross. We think their home ranges are around 600 square kilometers. So you all know Mr. JNCASR, the elephant biologist. I think he was the one who understood elephants the most. So he had initially done the study of home ranging in elephants. And this was done in Mudumlai. Those elephants also went into Bengaluru. Now, this is the only study till date which has looked at ranging patterns of elephants in a relatively undisturbed area in southern India. Because there are a lot of collars on elephants which are outside, which are entering conflict and so on. But what is the natural scenario and how much space do they need in an undisturbed condition? So this is a map from his study where they looked at some clans and they found that they need about 600 square kilometers at least. So if you have very small protected areas, that doesn't really help. You need very large areas or at least contiguous protected areas so that elephants can go from one protected area to another protected area instead of going outside where they will come into contact with disturbance. Now, somebody else said water. Right? Now, being a mega herbivore, they need water not only for drinking, but they need a cool climate. Right? So, like this picture, if you have misty conditions, elephants are fine. They can be comfortable. But because they are so large, the surface area to volume ratio becomes very small. Right? So, which means if they get heated up, then it's very difficult to lose that heat. So, they are very sensitive to heat conditions. So, they can have different kinds of strategies. One is changing their activity pattern. So in the daytime, they will go stand under some tree, take rest in the shade, not stand outside in the heat. That is one thing they can do. The other is go and splash water, mud, so that it helps with evaporation and try to cool off in that way. Elephants don't have that many sweat glands either, and many of them are in near the toes. So that is again a problem because they can't cool off very quickly unless they have a lot of water. Sometimes you find here this elephant is digging for water. They can smell that there's water underneath there. So if there is a drought condition or something, they can also dig and get water. And they can dust themselves also, partly to help with temperature, partly to get rid of all the parasites on them, like insects and other parasites. And they will scratch themselves against the trees and all of that. The other thing to cool down is by flapping the ears. Because the ears are so large and there are all these veins on the ears. Blood goes through those veins and by flapping them, that will get cooled down. They can cool down the blood through the ears. Now, I will shift a bit to talk about sociality in elephants. Why should animals be social at all? Why should animals be social?
Communicate themselves from prey.
One is to defend against prey. Sorry, to defend against predators. Right? Safety in numbers. What else?
Reproduction.
Reproduction, how?
Care of the young.
Care of the young, yes. And finding food. Right? Some species like honeybees, they can find food effectively because some bee goes out, finds food, comes back to the hive, tells the other bees about the food, go there. Right? So you can have defense against predation, you can have ability to find food, there would be cooperative care of offspring. In the case of elephants, predation is only of calves. Because adults are so big, nothing is going to prey on them except for humans. They don't have an improved ability to find food particularly because being in a group is disadvantageous because of competition. The elephants are so large, they need so much food. Then you're in a group, everybody wants to feed. Right? So finding food is probably not a reason for sociality. Predation of calves could be a reason, and cooperative care of offspring could be a reason because they show allomothering, which means that an elephant which is not a mother will take care of her calf. That is allomothering. So it's like an aunt or a sister taking care of a calf. We have been carrying out this long-term monitoring of elephants in Nagarhole and Bandipur. Now, between Nagarholi and Bandipur, you will know there is a Kavani river and there's a reservoir that was built on it. Bichanali Dam was built, which gave rise to a reservoir. So you have this large open area where elephants often come in the dry season to use that grass and the water. So we've been monitoring these elephants from 2009 onwards. And I will talk a little bit about what we know of their sociality. So what we do is we go and identify these individuals first. How to identify individuals? Just like how we identify humans, right? Although we do it subconsciously, here we have to initially learn how to do it. So we can look at the shape of the inner edge of the ear, whether it is straight, whether it is curved. We can look at the ear fold. Is it folded completely in front? Is it folded a little bit? Is it not folded? Is it folded backwards? We can look at holes in the ears. We can look at mixed tears in the ears. We can look at the ear globe itself. So here, this part is flat. Here, this part is hanging down. So we can also look at the ear length compared to the jaw. Is the ear coming below the jaw? Is the ear coming above the jaw? The shape of the ear. We can look at so many ear features. Then we can look at so many tail features. How long is the tail? Is there hair on the tail? How is that hair distributed on the tail? Whether there are kinks on the tail, like this is twisted here and bent there. We can also look at back shape, whether it is flat, whether it is humped. So using all of these, we identify different animals. We can get the height of an elephant or indirectly the age of an elephant by measuring that 4-foot circumference, or we can take relative heights, take pictures and take shoulder height of young ones compared to the mother. And like this, we identify calves which are less than 1 year, juveniles, subadults, and adults. So here are some few individuals. Here you can see these are all different, right? You can, sorry, you know,
They look alike for us.
they look alike. But now if you see, you can see any two pictures. Now you can see that they look different, right? Because you can see that the ear is either folded or not, or the ear shape looks different. Right? Yeah. So it takes people typically about 6 months to learn which individual is which. But most of my students know at least like 500 individuals. Right. Yeah. So what we do is by doing this, we can track individuals across time. So this elephant here, this small tusker, this elephant we had named him Moki. I had seen this during 2000. So that time when this was before we started this project, and I was just doing some other work in India, we saw this tusker and this mother. Then this is in 2009. By the time he had grown up, he had become adult, and it's with his mother again. After that, his mother died. Then this same animal, this is in 2017. In 2017, there was a drought year, and then finally he also died. So like this, we track individuals over time. This individual had, there was a female relative, that is what in Kutuhalli you had translated. That female relative had an interesting story because so this mother had a sister, she had a daughter, and that daughter, by the time she was growing up, she was a subadult. Both her mother and this female, both of them died. Usually there'll be a lot of relatives, but if you go on having male offspring, those males will leave and go away. So she didn't have any relatives left. That time only this male was there, and he used to come, and then he used to stay with her for some time. Then he would like wander around. Finally, when he also died in 2017, she had nobody. Then she went to another clan, and she started hanging around there. But these different clans have a lot of dominance. I will show you that. So she kept trying to go there, but they will dominate her. She will get pushed away. They'll be very aggressive. Then finally, slowly, over time, she got integrated into that clan. So now if you see her, you will not know that she's not part of that clan. So if you started that study today, we will think, oh, she's part of that clan. But actually, she had a different story. Right? So if we watch elephants like this over time, we get stories like this for different individuals. So here also, this female that you see, the small one, she looks like she'll be about 2 years old or so, if we look at the regular heights. But actually, her mother died when she was 2 years old. And then she's more than 5 years old here. But then she was stunted ever since. But because she has a group, she is with the group and then she is still there now and she is fine otherwise. But her height is very short. Here we have this female in 2009 with her mother and the same female with her calf in 2019. So like this, we can track what is happening to different individuals. Now, if we look at the elephant groups, a group is a set of individuals which are moving together. So, if you see them in the field, there'll be some within 50 to 100 meters of each other showing coordinated movement. They move to water or they feed together. And elephants show what is called a fission fusion society, which means that whatever group you see is not constant across time. So, if you have a group like this, imagine every circle is one adult female and these small ones are calves. When there's a lot of food available, there may be a large group. Then when the food becomes low, they may split up into different groups. Then they may become larger. Right? This kind of fission fusion society is seen in many species, including humans. Right? Because we are a typical fission fusion society. You may live in a small family or you may have a joint family. These different families may meet together at some point. Then you may go back to your house, or you may come to some gathering like this, where you are associating with many other individuals. Then you go back to your house. So your group size and composition will change over time. Right? So if some alien comes now and then sees this group, they will think, okay, this is one group. Then if they just saw this, they may think, okay, this is the family structure. Right? But you may go somewhere else and then you may have a different grouping after some time. You may have a different grouping after some time. So this is fission and fusion. So what we do is we go and look at these elephants in the field and then we see who are all there. So we have names for these different elephants. We see, okay, in one sighting we found this elephant. Next sighting we found this. And like this we go on finding sightings. And then we do a social network analysis to find out what kind of pattern is there. So one of my students, Nandini, she finished her PhD looking at social structure of females. So here, this is a social network of female elephants in our study area, where each circle is one adult female. And the connection means they have associated with their other females at some point in time. Now, if you see this network, you can see it is not a random network, right? There are different clusters. And these different clusters are what are called clans. So the clan is the most inclusive social unit. So that means they are not associating with animals outside of the clan. They are associating with animals in that clan. But in the field, you will not see the entire clan together mostly. You will see some small subgroups. Right? So this big black circle, you may see one group of these three animals at some time. You may see a group of 4 animals at some time. You may see a group of 6 animals. Like this, you go on seeing them and then build the structure. Then you can find out who belongs to which clan. So that is how we know who belongs to which clan. Now, males live in a very different kind of society. So males will disperse from their clan when they are about 10 years old or so. And thereafter, either they will be alone or sometimes they can temporarily associate with another male or they can temporarily associate with the female. And we've also been looking at these associations. So what we also do is we look at the genetic relatedness. So we collect dung samples from identified elephants. Then we genotype them in the lab. So we find the relatedness, genetic relatedness between different individuals. And then we try to see, are the individuals that are associating with each other, are they relatives or not? Who are they associating with? Who are they not nice to? So we find that female associations are based on relatedness. So if you look at the closest associate of a female, the associate who they spend the most time with, that will be a very close relative. But male associations are not based on relatedness. Right? So here we're talking about female-female associations and male-male associations, right? Not female-male associations. Now, I put this because you will all know Kripakar and Senani from Mysore, right? They often ask, what is it about elephants that is like humans? And but there are many things about elephants that are like humans. Of course, like the behavior of males and females are often very different. Males will run around, like show a lot more fighting behavior and so on. Elephants are also very empathetic in the sense that you can see them showing comfort to each other. If they get distressed, they will start comforting each other. They show allomatry. So one individual can take care of another individual's calf. This female, Janet, she showed a very strange behavior. This is not her calf. This is another female's calf. This calf used to keep coming and trying to suckle from her. But this female doesn't have milk. And she's a sabada. So she started giving her trunk tip. And then the calf used to suck on that trunk tip. So every time the calf came, she would give her trunk tip and then the calf would suck on the trunk. So they also show innovations like this. No, we didn't see any other animal doing this, but this female started doing this. Now, like humans, they can be very aggressive. And they can be very aggressive when towards other groups. They can be aggressive within the group also, within the clan. But within the clan, the aggression is not as much as the aggression towards other clans. Like in humans, we will always think of us versus them, and we will be more aggressive to them than within ourselves. Right? So these are different behaviors, aggressive behaviors, where they can either go and hit heads like this, or they can try to put the trunk and press on the head. This female, she also used to try climbing on the other elephant and pushing it down. So there are a lot of different behaviors. So here I will show you one video. Look at this female. Look at this one. What she does. This female. Look at this. She passed the calf and then she's taking that journal for no reason. At least we can't figure out what. That didn't do anything to her. And she went there and kicked it and went. Right? So you can sometimes have aggression like this. They just show that they are in charge there. Here you have two different clans. These are females from two different clans. They come and start fighting with each other. This is a bit strange. We see this in Kabini. We don't see this in other places. We think it could be to do with the amount of grass that's available. So everybody wants to have access to this rich resource. And this is an extreme case. So the female, these which are coming at the back, this and this, they belong to a different clan. The ones in front belong to a different clan. So initially that female from here is coming. So these are smelling them to see who is coming. Right? One female went away there. One here is staying back and then there will be aggression towards her. Those two start fighting there. Now some more start coming of that second clan which was walking there. Now everybody goes towards that, but some of them just don't want to get involved. They start walking away. And the one that got dominated, again she's trying. But she gets pushed down completely to the ground. Right? So this is like brutal. This, we don't usually see this. Then she starts roaring and then everybody runs to her. So occasionally we have dominance of this sort also. We've only seen this a few times. this kind of thing where one is pushed to the ground completely. We don't know if in this case it's because of resource availability. So one thing we also study is looking at what all food species are there. So we put transects in different parts and then see what elephant food species are there, grasses, herbs, shrubs and so on. And then see like amount of dominance which is shown, is it based on whether food is not there, food is there and so on. Now, like humans, elephants can also be very excitable. And finally, my last slide, elephants can be self-aware. Right? Can you tell how do we know if something has self-awareness? How do we say humans are self-aware?
Grooming?
Sorry?
Self-grooming?
Self-grooming.
Yeah.
But a lot of things can self-groom without being self-aware. So here we are talking about what is called theory of mind, which means I want to, so we know that they know. That is called awareness, right? Where you know what somebody else knows. It's not that you think everybody knows what you know, right? The complex version will be you know that they know that you know that they know, right? So how can we show that somebody has self-awareness? Okay, something to do with grooming, if you think along those lines, at least the first step one can think of. Where do you groom? Mirror, right? So if you look at the mirror and you know it is yourself, right? As opposed to another individual, that is one way of saying, okay, you are self-aware. You're not looking at the mirror and thinking, oh, it is somebody else. See, often you will see sparrows will go on pecking at the mirror. Right? They don't realize it's not their own reflection. Right? And also, people don't take very small babies to a mirror. Very small babies cannot really look at themselves in the mirror and realize what is going on. So, one thing where you can find out whether an animal realizes its own self is put a mirror in front. So, this is called the mirror test. Very few species have passed the mirror test. So, dolphins have passed the mirror test, chimpanzees have passed the mirror test. So they tried this on elephants. One elephant, there were only a few that were tried, passed the mirror test. So what they did was, these people, Plotnik and others, they put one big cross mark on this elephant with chalk. Okay, this was some zoo. And then put this very large mirror, it's a stainless steel mirror, otherwise glass mirror elephant will break in no time. So they put that and let it look at the mirror. Now this elephant can see this big chalk mark, and then it started touching that to see what is happening and then trying to okay. So because of that, they concluded that this is self-aware. Now, of course, there is a problem with the mirror test. In that, it doesn't let you think of a species which can't respond to a mirror. So supposing you put, say, you take a camel and you put a chalk mark, right? In some place where it can't reach its leg or it can't do anything. So supposing it goes to the mirror and it realizes it's a chalk mark on itself, what can it do? Right? It can't do anything, so you will think it doesn't have self-awareness. Right? And what about species which don't use eyesight? What if they use olfaction and they are self-aware, but we cannot test that? The other way in which people test what is called theory of mind is this location false belief test, where this people have done on human children also. So you have two children and you have two boxes. You put a ball inside that black box, right? And both are watching them. Then this child walks away. When this child walks away, you take the ball from that and put it in the other box. Right? Now you ask that other child, when this child comes back, in which box will she look for the ball? Right? Which box will she look for it? In the black box. Because that's where she put it. But if people don't have theory of mind, you will think because you know that it's in the white box, that she will also automatically know it's in the white box and they will go to the white box. So in fact, when you test this with human children, till they are about 2 years old or so, they will think that that person will look in a white box. Right? Only after a few years, people develop this theory of mind and then they are able to say correctly that they will look in the black box. So this kind of test has been done in chimpanzees, and chimpanzees can correctly say which So there you look at it because they can't tell you. You look at the gaze, which box you're expecting that person to come and look at. So they can correctly gauge that. But nothing of this sort has been tried in elephants because how would you try it? Right? If you are thinking of the other individual in terms of olfaction, what is it that one should try? So I will end with this. A very famous primatologist, Franz de Waal, had written this book called Are We Smart Enough to Know How Smart Animals Are? Right? And this is a problem because how much we can find out also depends on how smart we are. Right? So I will leave you with that and thank you.
I'm open for questions.
Yeah. Hi, this is nice one. Do they have very vivid memory of everything? Is it true that it's said that elephants have great memory?
The short answer is we don't know. They do have memory of certain things we do know. For instance, very old animals, if they have visited some area with water and then there is a drought condition, they might go back there again. So they have good spatial memory. If you look at the way they range also, sometimes you often find that they will go to the same place at the same time, then again next year they come to that place at that time. So they have good memory in that sense. But also, uh, memory in itself is not necessarily a very great thing, right? Because humans think of intelligence the way we do, the memory the way we do. We often put a premium on it and judge how intelligent or how good other animals are based on us. But we can't walk as fast as we can't run as fast as anyone. We are not strong as anybody. This is the only thing we have. So we try to gauge other animals in terms of what we have. But yeah, in terms of exactly how much memory we have, we don't know how they have it. Hockey has some. Yeah.
I have a question that question ಆನೆ ಅದೇ ಸರ್ ಈಗ ಒಂದು ಫೀಚರ್ ಆನೆ ಬೇರೆ ಫೀಚರ್ ಆನೆನ ಬಾಟ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತಾ
ಬೇರೆ ಫೀಚರ್ ಆನೆ
Maybe so will it give birth
ಹಾ
to
ಬರ್ತ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತಾ ಹೌದು ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ ಈವನ್ ವಿತ್ ಟಸ್ಕರ್ ಆಲ್ಸೋ ಸೊ ಸೊ ಮೇಲ್ ಆನೆಗೆ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಆನೆಗೆ ಟಸ್ಕ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪಕ್ಕೆ ಟಸ್ಕ್ ಇರಲ್ಲ ಸೊ ಅದು ಮಗ್ನ ಸೊ ಇಫ್ ಯು ಲುಕ್ ಅಟ್ ಟಸ್ಕರ್ ಮೇಲ್ its task can be taskless also. So ಆ ಥರ
ಈಗ ನೀವು ಕ್ವಶನ್ ತೋರಿಸಿದ್ರಿ ಸೌತ್ ಅಲ್ಲೇ ಬೇರೆ ತರ ಇತ್ತು
ಹಾ ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್
ಆ ತರ
ಆ ಥರ
so
years
can
or
two
which
species different?
ಓ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಇದು ನಾಟ್ ವಿತ್ ದ ಸ್ಪೀಶೀಸ್ ನಾಟ್ ಸೊ ಫಸ್ಟಲ್ಲಿ ಆ 3 ಸ್ಪೀಶೀಸ್ ಇತ್ತು ಅಲ್ವಾ ಆಫ್ರಿಕನ್ ಸವಾನಾ ಆಫ್ರಿಕನ್ ಫಾರೆಸ್ಟ್ ಎಲಿಫೆಂಟ್ ಏಷ್ಯನ್ ಎಲಿಫೆಂಟ್ ಆಫ್ರಿಕನ್ ಎಲಿಫೆಂಟ್ ಏಷ್ಯನ್ ಎಲಿಫೆಂಟ್ ಆಗಲ್ಲ ಆ ಥರ ಆಫ್ರಿಕನ್ ಫಾರೆಸ್ಟ್ ಎಲಿಫೆಂಟ್ ಆಫ್ರಿಕನ್ ಸವಾನಾ ಎಲಿಫೆಂಟ್ ಒಂದು ಜಾಗದಲ್ಲಿ ಹೈಬ್ರಿಡೈಸೇಷನ್ ಆಗಿದೆ ಬಟ್ ಇಟ್ಸ್ ವೆರಿ ಸ್ಮಾಲ್ ಪರ್ಸೆಂಟೇಜ್. That's a very good question. This was one of the reasons many people are saying we should not be considered two different species. But everything else suggests that they are different. So, and we know that some different species can hybridize. Like lion and tiger, they have artificially hybridized. So, it does happen in a song.
How about communication?
Communication is mostly through sound. They use infrasound. So, we can often not hear the infrasound. They have different kinds of calls which we can hear also, like trumpet, rumble, which is very low. They can roar, which is a contact call to other individuals. They can also communicate by smell, because when they have dung or urine on the ground, some other animal can come and they can smell that and see, is this a male or female? Is this male in musk or not? Is this female in estrus or not? So those kinds of signals happen through smell. In fact, in the African savanna elephant, one very interesting experiment was done. So what they wanted to know is, do the animals in a group know who are all there and who is there behind them, who is there in front of them, and they are walking in a line, right? So they are walking in a line. Here often animals don't walk in a line so much. there it's a long distance and there is often a very old leader who's a matriarch. And the matriarch's role is very strong. Here we don't find the role of a matriarch. So there when they're walking in the line, they wanted to see, does the animal in front know that some animal is supposed to be behind them? So they took the dung from the animal behind and placed it in front in the path that they are going to go towards. And when they came there and then it smelled that dung, it got completely confused and started rumbling and started trumpeting and everything, and everybody came running there. But if you keep the dung of an animal which is in front, then they don't respond. So they realize that something is wrong when they are thinking, oh, somebody should be behind me, but it's actually in front.
What about with humans? How do you perceive their communication? Because it should be happening at some level.
Humans and elephants.
Yeah.
Humans and elephants, but we don't communicate in a natural sense. No? They know that humans are there because of sound, because of smell. So if they come into an area with the smell, they know this area has humans. Or because if there are no humans at all in some areas and there is no smell, elephants often return very quickly to those areas. With sound also they can realize that humans are there. With smell, again in the African savanna, this experiment was done where in East Africa there are these Maasai tribes. Maasai tribes will often scare elephants. So they gave the scent of Maasai people with some other, humans, and then they found that elephants react differently to Maasai versus the others. So they realized that these people may be a threat, these people may not be a threat. Because there are regular tourists also, and there are Maasai who hunt.
ಆನೆಗಳಿಗೆ ಭಾಷೆ ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ ಎರಡು ಇದುವರೆಗೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ಆನೆಗಳು ಒಂದು ಆನೆಗಳ ಭಾಷೆ ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಕನ್ನಡ ತಮಿಳು ಆನೆ ಜೊತೆ ಅಂಡರ್ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಲ್ಯಾಂಗ್ವೇಜ್
ಆನೆಗೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಭಾಷಾ
ಎನಿ ಲ್ಯಾಂಗ್ವೇಜ್ ಇಟ್ ಅಂಡರ್ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಲ್ಯಾಂಗ್ವೇಜ್
ಇಲ್ಲ ಡೌಟ್ಫುಲ್ because mamuts often use some
ಮನುಷ್ಯರು ಬರೆದಾಗ ಭಾಷೆ
ಅದೇ mammut use ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ some commands, so they can realize that okay this is this command, but they will not understand the syntax of it or
ಲ್ಯಾಂಗ್ವೇಜ್ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗುತ್ತೆ
language ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಆ command ಗೊತ್ತಾಗುತ್ತೆ. Like they use a command to lift the leg, use a command to go forward. Correct, that is trained. Yeah, that has to be.
ಎಷ್ಟು ಆನೆ ನೋಡಿ
In Nagarmole Bandipur, we have identified about 1,000.
I have regarding the breeding habits. Will it be more in the clan or with other clans also?
So the males anyway disperse from the clan. So currently one of my students is looking at this. We are sampling all the calves and the mothers and males to find out how much paternity success each male has. So answer is I don't know right now. But we don't. So usually because the males leave the clan and go to a different place, it will usually be with other clans. But right now we are finding that some males are not even dispersing from that area; they are still in that area. We don't know whether this is an artifact of maybe density is very high here and there's no place to go. Maybe they are there and they will go later. That we don't know. But usually it will be with other clans.
elephants have a particular path.
Somebody should tell me who. Sorry.
You said that the elephants have a particular path. They call it about man elephant conflict often places. What is your reaction for that?
My reaction is that elephants, the two need not be correlated. There are different kinds of elephants coming into conflict. One is elephants go in a particular range, that if that area is converted to something else, they can enter into conflict. Sometimes elephants realize, okay, there are crops there, they start feeding, and then they get habituated to feeding on that, so they go on feeding on that. So that is one type. The other is some elephants lose their home range and then they have nowhere else to go, and then they obligate crop raiders, they have to keep feeding them. So it's quite a complex thing. It will not be one reason for all the conflict. So some elephants, because they are following some path and there happens to be food there, they might feed. But it will not be the case for all elephants. See, that way elephants, like humans, have a lot of individuality. There's a lot of different personality types, there's a lot of individuality. So what one elephant does in one place may not be the same thing that they do in another, may not be the same thing that another elephant does. Also, the same elephants can behave very differently in different areas. So, for instance, one of the clans that we study comes to the Kavani backwaters. They will be all calm there. They also go to Nugu. And Nugu, there's a lot of cooperating there. There are people always like showing them. So if we go to Nugu, they hear jeep sound from very far away, they all start running. So that also happens. They know which area may have threat and they respond differently in different areas.
I am telling you, in Assam,
Uh-huh.
there is one tea estate.
Uh-huh.
Where the overall tea estate has made a particular path for the elephants.
Uh-huh.
Every day they pass through that path only. And his tea has got a special prize in the USA because of the environmental friendly. Yes, Madam?
How to comfort an elephant and address the elephant when it gets violent? Is there any technique or why among themselves, how they are going to control each other? Okay, mother is there, mother controls the young one. Or else among themselves, when they get fight, how do they, is there any way?
Yeah, that picture which
What irritates them, what makes them soothing?
this thing. So they often comfort by sorry.
Like,
So
like,
so this thing is one behavior. They often take the tongue tip and put it in the other's mouth. So that is one comfort behavior. So here also you see, or they touch their face, keep putting their tongue like that out here. They use that to comfort.
Touching is mainly
Yeah.
when they get violent, may become human then. When they make sound or they
Yeah, sound, smell. Yeah. Smell also. So if you're working with elephants, then you also have to make sure that wind direction is not going from you towards them. That's the first thing you look at. You always look at wind direction.
Last page.
Okay.
For elephants, snake bite what happens to
Sorry, snake bites.
snake bite for the elephant.
It depends on the snake. If it's a
what
very
happens to the snake also?
what happens to snake? If it's a very poisonous snake, it can hurt them. Sorry, I don't know. Yeah.
Ma'am? So like they say the dolphin is the second most intelligent planet on Earth. So where does the elephant come in the top 10 intelligence?
Okay, we don't even know that dolphins are the most intelligent. See, these are things that we make up, right? So in that sense, I might think that a chimpanzee is more intelligent than a dolphin, but it's also a question of what do you say is intelligence? Intelligence is based on all kinds of things that we make up and say, okay, if you do this, you're intelligent, right? It could be that if you remember these many places, you're intelligent, and many humans cannot remember all of these different landscapes, but other animals do.
This one
So
question from
elephants, in that sense, we really don't know what all they can do. We know that they can cooperate with other elephants. So if you give them tasks like, if you have two ropes, and only if both the ropes are pulled simultaneously, you will get food. So two elephants have to cooperate to pull that. That kind of task elephants take. Elephants can differentiate. So if you say that this box with this kind of pattern on the lid only has food, a box with a different pattern doesn't have food, they can learn that. So many of these things they can learn. But how exactly intelligent they are, we don't know.
This one question from balcony.
I have a question. Given the success of Project Elephant and the shrinking sizes of our forests and the growing human population, do you think we have reached the carrying capacity in India, or is there potential for more elephants?
I think this is a very difficult question in the sense that we don't even know what the carrying capacity is, and we don't even know what the actual population sizes are. Right? It's all everything that we have is an estimate, and some estimates are good, some estimates are not so good. There's a lot of confidence interval around it. People, given the number of conflict scenarios, people would say that we are reaching some capacity, maybe some kind of carrying capacity. That also depends on how much movement of humans there are now. So the same, even if the distribution of elephants was the same, say 30 years ago and today. Today there are many more humans wandering around everywhere. Right? You have so many more roads, you have so much more traffic, which was not there 30 years ago. So even if the same number of elephants are there today as 30 years ago, we would still think it's an increase because you keep encountering them. So to that extent, I'm not really sure. But I think again, it's not the number that we should be worried about. We should also be thinking about what the populations are like. And we also have to look at the sex ratio. So we have what is called the effective population size. Right? The effective population size is the number of breeding individuals. So if you have a skewed sex ratio, so because of poaching you have much fewer males than the number of females, the effective population size will be a fraction of the population size. So even if you have 50,000 elephants, the effective population size will be 5,000. So that again depends on how many breeding individuals are
Madam,
ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ಪಕ್ಷಿಗಳು ಇತರ ಪಕ್ಷಿಗಳ ಸೌಂಡ್ ಅನ್ನು ಇಮಿಟೇಟ್
there.
ಮಾಡೋದು ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಉದ್ದೇಶಕ್ಕಾಗಿ ಆಲ್ಸೋ ಎಂಜಾಯ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ ಇಮಿಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಆ ಥರ ಆಮೇಲೆ ಏನಾದ್ರು
ಇದೆ ಆಕ್ಚುಲಿ ಒನ್ ಟೈಮ್ ನೋಡಿದ್ರು ನಾನು ನೋಡಿದ ಯಾರು ಆಫ್ರಿಕಾದಲ್ಲಿ there was one elephant which mimicked the truck. So they had this truck which used to keep passing by, and this elephant started mimicking that truck. So they have recordings of that, and then they have shown that this is an information.
we have chance for 2 more questions. That's about 10 minutes.
ದಸರಾದಲ್ಲಿ ಆನೆಗಳನ್ನ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಲಾಸ್ಟ್ ಇಯರ್ ಬಿಫೋರ್ ಲಾಸ್ಟ್ ಇಯರ್ ಪ್ರಾಕ್ಟೀಸ್ ಟೈಮಲ್ಲಿ ದಸರಾ ಡ್ಯೂರೇಷನ್ ಅಲ್ಲೇ ಒಂದು ಆನೆ ಒಂದು ಹೆರಿಗೆ ಆಯಿತು. ಬಟ್ ದಸರಾ ಪ್ರೊಸೆಷನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ತುಂಬಾ ಏಜ್ ಆಗಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ತಪ್ಪಿ ನೀರು ಪ್ರೆಗ್ನೆಂಟ್ ಈ ತರ ಆನೆಗಳು ಬಳಸಬಾರ್ದು ಅಂತಿದೆ. ಅದು ತುಂಬಾ ಚರ್ಚೆ ಕೂಡ ಆಯಿತು ಪೇಪರ್ ಡಿಸ್ಕಸ್ ಟೈಮ್ ಟು ಐಡೆಂಟಿಫೈ ವೆದರ್ ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್
They can use ultrasound for elephant to find out which pregnant. You
they
can.
failed before last year.
Huh.
They used full practice.
Pregnant. See, if you just look at the elephant, it's difficult to tell whether it's pregnant because the gestation time is almost 2 years. So if it is advanced pregnancy, you can make out. But if it's early on, you cannot make out unless you use an ultrasound. So I don't know in that case what exactly happened. But elephants die out of a lot of causes. It doesn't have to be that. And elephants have heart attacks also like humans.
ಎಲಿಫೆಂಟ್ ಕೋಡ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ
I don't know.
ಪ್ರಜ್ಞಾ ಚೌಟ ಅವರು ಪ್ರಜ್ಞಾ ಚೌಟ ಅಂತ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಗಜ ಸಂಹಿತೆ ಅಂತಾನೂ ಆಗಿದೆ ಮತ್ತೆ ಇಂಗ್ಲಿಷಲ್ಲಿ ಎಲಿಫೆಂಟ್ ಕೋಡ್ ಬುಕ್ ಅಂತ
For the mahouts.
ಹಾ
I don't know anything about the book of
ಅವ್ರ ಪುಸ್ತಕದಲ್ಲಿ ಪ್ರಸ್ತಾಪ ಆಗಿದೆ ಅವರು ಕಾಡಲ್ಲಿ ಇದ್ದು ಆನೆಗಳ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಸಂಪರ್ಕ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ ಬೆಂಗಳೂರಿಂದ ಪ್ರಕಟ ಆಗಿದ್ದಂತ ಮೇಲೆಟ್ಟು
No, I have not read the book.
This should be the last question.
So at the starting, you had told about how there are some similarities in the gene thingy in some areas, but there is a distinct difference in Palgard thingy, and you came to know that by the genetic patterns. How many generations did you take the genetic patterns for before you concluded that there is no similarities or there are?
So what we do is we look at the genetic structure now. But the genetic structure now is actually giving us an inference about the past. So that past could be, so one needs to look at different kinds. So in DNA there are different kinds of markers. So if you look at different kinds of markers, you can get an estimate of how long ago that divergence happened. With what we did, it looked like maybe at least 100,000 years ago. But the strange thing is after I did that study and I found this gap across the Palgard gap, a lot of other people started doing studies on a lot of other species. And now people are finding this effect of Palgard gap in so many species. People have found it in some bird species. People have found it in lion-tailed macaques. So there are a lot of species in which you're finding this effect of the Palgard gap. Even we ourselves did we sampled a small number of dole, we sampled a small number of dogs. There also we found the effect. But we didn't find an effect on cheetah and samba. So my working hypothesis is that this was a barrier long ago in the past, and then the barrier has broken down. So, species with shorter generation times have more generations of gene flow across. Species with longer generation times have less gene flow. So, elephants will show the most differentiation. Other species will show less differentiation. But it depends on home brain size and generation time. So, this is something actually a lot of people are working on now.
The average age of Asian.
Average age, we don't know. The lifespan is around maybe 67 years.
Have you seen a change in infant mortality over the last 2009 onwards in the range where you study?
Where we study, there is high infant mortality. High meaning that we find mortality to be about 25% in the first year. But having said that, this is probably the normal thing because we don't have data from any other population. I am saying high only because in the African savanna elephant there is one study where they found infant mortality to be about half of this. That is the only data we have. So this is the only long-term monitoring project of a large number of individuals in the country. And there is one more such project in Sri Lanka. Apart from that, we don't have populations which are monitored. So we actually need a lot of long-term populations so that we do comparisons across. So right now, what we only have is data from one point. And we know, this is the value of infant mortality. We don't know if this is high compared to something else, low compared to something else. We don't know.
Within the 5-year, let's say, period, post such a period,
Yeah.
Has it changed or has it not changed, at least in the last 20 years?
So it's not, there is no trend. What we do find is it will go up and down. And this will go up and down depending on drought conditions. So if you find, say like there's a drought here, that even the department keeps looking at adult carcasses at this time. With calves, it is difficult to find carcasses in the field. So there, our study is useful because we know which animals have calves. So if we see a mother without the calf, we know the calf has died because the calf cannot wander around on its own. So if we look at our data, when you have years with severe drought, then following that year or that year itself, you find a lot of things. Or you find animals that go missing. There is no increasing trend or decreasing trend. Thank you.
Dr. Vidya, we have been trying to bring her here for almost 1 year. For several reasons, she could not make it. But this time she said, in July, I'm coming definitely. And then after that, from next month onwards, she will be again going out abroad. So before that, she has come here. And I think it's one of the most mysterious topics that we have ever heard here. Mysterious because it's a very lovely animal. Second thing is that it's very difficult to study. And a person who studies that in such a detail, especially the behavior biology and the genetics, that's a wonderful thing. And one more class. On behalf of Kala Sodachi, Vigyan Prasar and Karnataka Science and Technology Academy, I thank Dr. Vidya for coming over here and then giving this talk. And we are very grateful to you. And we would like to present you a small memento. Thank you. Thank you. See, the next talk will be on 15th August. And 11th August or 12th August, so that's the second Saturday. And we still have not got the confirmation, but there will be another interesting talk. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Not in court.